So let's take a look at the concept of control flow in the Ruby language. Control flow is just using statements like if and else to control the flow of our data. So let's check this out in action. We can use statements, these special keywords like if and else in the Ruby language, and move our data in specific ways. So for example, let's create a variable here called age, and we'll set it to 40. And then what we'll do is we'll write an if statement. We'll say if, and what happens is you put a condition right next to this if statement here, and this condition will evaluate like a Boolean and either be true or false. So I can say if age is greater than 40, we'll just output a statement in the console. And then what we can do is follow that up by putting an else keyword. And notice how I'm using multiple lines here. This is usually how they're structured out. And then, like most Ruby structures, you have to put an end right there to close this. Okay, so let's see what happens when we run this. And there you go. What happens is this piece of code here between the if and the else didn't get executed, but this code between the else and the end did. And the reason why is because this Boolean does not evaluate to true. Remember, we looked at Booleans and we looked at different comparison operators, right? So this is going to compare this variable that we set here and check and see if it is indeed greater than 40. So likewise, we can also do the else if statement, and that's just kind of extending from the if statement. So we can build it out like this, and we can add another condition next to the else if. So that's how we can kind of nest it, sorry, not nest if statements, but kind of layer them back to back. So we can do, remember, we're not doing one equal sign, we need two equal signs since we're doing a Boolean here. And then finally we need to follow it up with another else to do what we would do if all of these kind of fail or become false. So now, if we run this, we'll see that this code executes because this evaluated to true, and it won't go on to execute this as well. So that's a little bit about using the if and the else. Now you can also use the unless statement. And let's try this with a different Boolean value. We'll do something like this. And what we'll do is we'll create a Boolean expression to see if something evaluates to true or false. And for now, we'll just say 1 is equal to itself. So we know that this evaluates to true. Now don't let all these equal signs confuse you. This is just variable assignment. So we're saying we want a variable called Boolean, and we want it to be equal to whatever this expression evaluates to. Okay, so in this case, this expression is asking, is this number here 1 equivalent to this number here 1? And we know that it is true. So now all we have to do is complete this unless statement like this. And then we need to end. And so what this is saying is unless this expresses to true, then we'll run whatever code is here. So we'll say so let's run this and see what happens. And as you can see, nothing executes because this does happen to be true. So now if I make this false, you'll see that it executes. So this is, once again, it's saying unless this executes as true, we'll run whatever code is here. So it's kind of the opposite of using an if statement. It's kind of the other way around, and that's helpful, and you'll see that quite a bit. So one last thing I want to show you is what we call the ternary operator. So this is just a shorthand of an if statement. So let's create another one here, and we'll just say age is 50, and we'll say puts, and then we'll put the condition down here. So we'll say, let's check and see if the age value that we've stored here in this variable is greater than the number 40. And we know it is, but so looking at this shorthand format, so what'll happen here is we've got this ternary if statement. So what's happening here is we're saying, let's evaluate this code, and then we need this required question mark here. This is part of this syntax. And then we'll say, if this is true, let's execute this code, this part of this side of the colon right here that we see. Now, if this is not true, you can think of the colon as the else. We'll just execute whatever's to the right of the colon. So let's take a look at this. And there we go. It's executed what we expected, the left side of this colon here, because this is true. Now, if we were to change this to say something like 30 or 20, and then run it again, we'll see that only this got executed. So that's the shorthand version of the if statement.